We drove by him and he literally was like, oh, I want that house. I want this house. No for sale sign, nothing.
Yeah. Just start calling.
And I started calling, knocking on doors, writing letters. And 6 months later, he bought one off market for like $2.5 million.
Welcome back to the CashFlow podcast, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yoss. And before we get to today's guest, I want to give a special thank you to our sponsors. First and foremost, Rainforest Plumbing, Heating, and Air. They're servicing the entire Phoenix Valley. And Daniels Plumbing, servicing San Diego, LA, Orange County, and the Inland Empire. Anything you need for plumbing, heating, and air, these companies will take care of you. And I thank you for your support. Now to my guest. Somebody who's been in the industry for years, who knows multifamily and residential, Patrick Mercer.
What's going on, Jason?
Hey, man, good to have you on. Thank you so much. I'm super excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I want to talk to you a little bit right out of the gate. How did you choose this niche? Your second generation. How did you choose this special residential multifamily niche?
Yeah, so I call it my main business. My main business is I run a residential resale team. Team leader. I've been in the business for 10 years and I only represent sellers. So I've done that for like 5 years and obviously lead the team. And then I have 4 agents on my team that just solely work buyers. So kind of a new model and not a ton of people that are doing that. But I always saw that there were too many agents that wore too many hats and they're running around San Diego County trying to work with sellers, more so often than not working with a ton of buyers, and they're just doing the rat race that a lot of agents find themselves in.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially the part about wearing a lot of hats. Is it take a lot of your time to lead a team, or do you find that you have the right set of people in the group that make this work?
Yeah, I mean, certainly you have to start with your foundation. So, when I first got into the business, I was a solo agent, so I was doing absolutely everything.
Right.
And then about 1.5 years into the business, changed my life. I got an assistant. And so,
right.
That's a tough leap for a lot of agents to go from, solo, hey, I'm doing everything. I mean, 1, they don't like giving up the control. 2, they're afraid to pay the money for the assistant. But, it's, I kind of dove head first. And as soon as I did that, I was like, wow, I can just prospect all day. And, I ended up doing that. And then business kind of took off. And then it got to a point where the listing side of my business really grew. And of course, I was working with buyers. But then at that point, I had brought on an agent or 2. And then any buyer lead that I would get off of my listings or anybody that I would talk to, I would immediately send them to those 2 agents. And that kept them happy because, if you're on a lot of teams, most of those leads are just like online trash leads. And certainly I try to give as many leads as possible, but most team leaders will cherry pick the good ones. Yep. And then you got the rest of the team sitting there and that's not a bad model. That's how I would say 95% of the teams operate. That's good. But for me, I was just like, no more buyers. And once I kind of had that mentality, I only focused on sellers. And then it also became a big value add when I would sit down in front of potential sellers because I would say, hey, you're interviewing Joe Smith. And Joe Smith has a team, but, Joe also works with buyers. And I only go on appointments with people like you that say, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. What does that look like? And then once you sign a contract with me, my back end team and myself, that's my only focus.
Right.
I'm not carting buyers from Oceanside to Imperial Beach. So that's been a huge value add for me on the listing side.
Way to be specialized because you're right. There are a lot of people doing everything. So talk to me a little bit about, on that journey, mentorship. A lot of us need to be able to lean on or look to someone to be able to have success. Who were you looking to and how did that translate into your business?
Yeah, so I've always had mentors. I'm a huge fan of, rip off and duplicate or, learn from somebody that's been in the trenches before.
Right.
So when I first got into the business, I remember I cold called Dan Beer like 15 times. And after a couple months, I finally got and to sit with him. And he actually wasn't somebody that, I continued a relationship with, even though Dan and I know each other and I have a ton of respect for him. But, I sat down with him, and fortunately he had given me 30 minutes of his time. And I think in that, I was very new into the business. I don't think I had anybody working for me at that time. But, I think he could see the drive that I had sitting in front of him, asking him the right questions. But yeah, mentorship's huge. I also have been a part of the Tom Ferry coaching organization
huge.
for 8 years. When I first started, they were just coaching me, and it was like X dollars a year. And I was like, damn, this is a lot of money here. And then, I look back 8 years later, and it's like 5X what they were originally charging me, because now they're coaching my whole team. But it's one of the most valuable things you can have. And then also, I really, because I think I had a lot of investors early on, because investors, obviously easy business or good business, just because they're ready to transact. If you go out and find a deal for them, they're going to buy with you. So I focused on that early on. And I had about 2 investors that were super cool with me, did a ton of deals with them. They'd let me cruise around with them for, a couple days here and there.
Yeah, that's great.
And so that was big for me.
That when you talked about that last part, the investors, is that what got you going to not just be a real estate professional, but then be that multifamily investor as well? Is that what you got you started?
Yeah, certainly. There's a principal guy in town that owns a bunch of doors, and I met him how I basically started my business at open houses. And he walked into this like $300,000 condo 8 years ago. I was literally flipping lights off, and he walks in, and he takes 30 seconds in the unit. He's like, "Hey, I want to buy it." And I was like, okay. And started talking to him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm a commercial broker. Like, I always go directly through the listing agent. You can rep me." And, next thing you know, he closed on it 7 days later.
Wow.
I nurtured the relationship. He had some issues with that particular condo with the HOA, because he went in and demoed everything without HOA approval. And, I ended up going to the board meetings to get yelled at for my client.
Architecture board. That was fabulous.
Yeah. So I think, he saw that I was willing to hustle with him. And then, I've probably done 12 to 15 transactions with him. I sold his personal residence in La Jolla. I sold him his personal residence that he bought off market, because he drove me around. He was living in La Jolla at the time. He drove me Marston Hills, Bankers Hill, Mission Hills, and he had me write down 12 different addresses. We drove by him, and he literally was like, "Oh, I want that house. I want this house." No for sale sign, nothing.
Just start calling.
And I started calling, knocking on doors, writing letters, and 6 months later, he bought one off market for like $2.5 million.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. What an education to be right seating next to somebody with that kind of drive.
Huge.
There's it's tough to kind of replicate that experience. Let's talk about how that rubbed off on your philosophy when it comes to investing in real estate. What's the mindset that you take?
So this is a good transition. So when I was actually driving around with this investor, he looked at me and he was like, "Hey, Patrick, how many doors do you own?" And I'm sitting there in the front seat going, "I don't own anything." And he's like, "Patrick," he goes, "Look, we're going to continue this," but he goes, "You need to start buying property." And I was not looking for a house at that time. My business had just kind of started to take off, and I bought something within like 2 months.
Nice.
Solely because of him.
Nice.
And, I look back and like parlayed that into my next house 2 years later that I bought off market, and then, kept doing the classic move up.
I love it. So the buy and hold is kind of the philosophy that you look at. Or are you actually trying to sell and diversify? Like, where's the end goal here?
The end goal is hold forever.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I respect people that flip. I've certainly flipped just single families before.
Sure.
I hate that game. You're chasing your tail. It's super speculative. You can lose your ass on it, obviously. I mean, you can make a bunch of money. I think margins have gotten super compressed over the years, obviously. So like the money's not good anymore. Or you have to turn out crazy volume to make a ton of money in the flip game. But my father was in the commercial business on the multifamily resale side a long time ago, and he started buying stuff. And he had mentors of his that said, like, "Dude, you're in San Diego County. Like, this is paradise here. They're not making any more land.
That's right.
You buy these things and you hold them as long as you possibly can." And so I look for value add deals, and I go in, add the value, sit on the equity, and then if it makes sense to refinance and pull some or all my money out, obviously I do that. And then it's the waiting game. Your tenants are paying down principal.
Yep.
They're paying all of your expenses. Obviously, no lender is going to give you too much money where it doesn't cash flow, so it still cash flows.
Right.
So yeah, that's been my philosophy, and I don't have any intention to sell anything.
I love that. It's like the Burr method, but multifamily. And
yeah.
Is it outside of San Diego, or you're solely focused on where you're born and raised here, right?
Solely in San Diego, only because I like to look at and be able to touch my real estate. It's like, I don't want to get on a plane. I don't know other markets.
Sure.
Yeah, you can go get better cash flow in, Toledo, but what's that property going to be worth in 5 years, 10 years? Like, it's going to be negligible. But here, I mean, obviously I'm going after the equity appreciation play, but if you buy deals right and you add the value, you can cash flow stuff like crazy.
Yeah, that's right. That's 100% correct. When you talk to multifamily investors, what's your rules of the road for them? Like, hey, got to focus on these things to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and I mean, this is basic, but you make money on your purchase.
Right.
And I think a lot of people get antsy because they just want to buy deals, or they think it's sexy to own real estate. But like, hey, at the end of the day, real estate real estate is only as good as the income it produces.
Yeah.
And I think people lose sight of that. So when I'm looking at deals, I only buy value add. I think if you're later on in your career tenure of investing in real estate, that you can buy more turnkey stuff where you're just parking money.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But for me, I want that big pop in equity up front.
Yeah.
And then leave it alone and come back 20 years from now and like, there's my retirement.
To get that turnkey A model up front, you better have some cash.
Exactly. It's a capital intensive environment. I mean, hey, even buying these value add deals are capital intensive in our market, which is fine. But I just know this market very well.
Yeah.
I have some buildings that are kind of in rougher neighborhoods, but I have 2 buildings in El Cajon. I bought my first deal in El Cajon in 2020, and that was a monster home run for me.
Let's talk about that El Cajon.
Yeah.
Walk us through, for somebody who's, hey, I want to get in. Walk me through that first deal and how it shook out. So 2020.
So again, this goes back to relationships with investors. So I had befriended investor client of mine. He bought a bunch of deals off me, so I was making money obviously on the resale side of that because he was flipping houses. So find him something, make money on that. It was typically a double end, and then I would triple end it when he would rehab it and resell it. But anyways, I became good friends with him, and he's a deal shark, like deal junkie. He's just always pitching deals to people, which like that's what these investors do, right?
Right.
And so I got sick. I literally got sick of him pitching this deal to me in El Cajon, and I was like, dude, all right, I'll go look at it. And like I wasn't ready to buy my first multifamily, but long story short, I went out there and it was 6 units, and he was under contract for $650,000, which like right now seems crazy talk. Wow. But
they get a bathroom for $650,000 in San Diego right now.
Yeah, they were rough units. I mean, total slumlord owner.
Got it.
I inherited a tenant of 45 years, chain smoked in his 1 bedroom every single day, never had his carpet changed. But I mean, the highest rent was $500 a month. The lowest was $300. The landlord would go down to the property, pay in cash, and he would take it and go and never fix anything. But like these people didn't move. It was sad because they didn't want to give up the $300, but they didn't understand. So long story short, that property came out at $1 million. He got it under contract for $900,000. The kids had inherited it. This was June, so right after the lockdowns of 2020 with COVID. Seller thought the world was on fire, like a lot of people did. And this investor asked for a $350,000 discount, and she signed on the bottom line the next day.
Whoa.
And he didn't have the money to close on this thing, and he wanted a quick $50K. So I closed on it at $650 and then paid him $50,000. And I was off to the races, and I got everybody out, cash for keys.
Talk to me about that. You had 6 units of people who were paying no money.
Yeah.
What was market rent about that at that time?
I mean, you couldn't even put a market rent on it because the units were uninhabitable.
And so when you approached them, like, what did you do to be able to get them out? You said cash for keys. What did that really entail?
Well, at that point, I don't even think I was really up to date on what rent control
TPA
parameters.
stuff. Yeah.
But El Cajon was a little bit more lenient.
Sure.
But basically, I was doing this because I didn't even have a property management company to manage anything at that point. So I went to him and negotiated with him, said, look, I'll give you 60 days. I'll give you 2 months of rent. And I don't even know if I made them pay rent for the next 2 months.
Sure,
but anyways, and the 2 months to me were nothing. It was $1,000 to each person. But luckily, I got everybody out, and that was an extensive remodel project of about a year and a half. And by the time I was done with that, when I released, I ended up converting a garage into a legal ADU. And when I was done with that, I took the rents from like $3,000 a month to $15,000 in a year and a half.
Oh my gosh, 500% basically.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So, look, from time to purchase to time that you were fully stabilized and leased up, what would you say time frame?
A year and a half to almost 2 years. So it felt like 10 years. I was pissed. But I was also getting my feet wet with different contractors.
Sure.
I went through 2 contractors on that deal.
Got it.
Squeaked across the finish line, and paid $700 for it. I had another probably $500 into it.
Okay.
And when I stabilized it, I went to refinance it. Bank looked at it, appraised it at $2.5 million.
Boom.
And they wired $1.6 million to me.
Boom.
And then I was off to the races.
Oh my gosh, huge.
Yeah. So I was certainly fortunate that my first deal was a grand slam. I had no money into that. I probably had another like $400, $500 in my pocket, tax free, and then I went and bought my next building. 7 units in La Mesa, same thing.
Wait, you didn't buy a Ferrari, you didn't buy a boat, you went and put it
no.
right back into property.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people miss at, even on the agency side too,
Right.
like residential resale. All right, cool, you sold a $4 million house, and then you took the next 3 weeks off and blew half of it.
Exactly.
And they forget that they, have to pay the government too 12 months later.
Yep.
So a lot of people miss that, but yeah, I knew this refinance money was not, it was my money, but this was my down payment for the next deal.
This was the next deal, right?
Yeah. So my next deal, I picked up for 1.8. I got everybody out, seven doors. I turned that one over in 6 months. So I, condensed the time frame.
Now we're getting tighter. We're getting better.
Yeah, I learned a lot, right?
Yep.
And I finally had a contractor at this point that I trusted and liked. So he burned through everything in 6 months. I was probably another $600,000 into that. So 1.8, I'm into it for 2.4. Appraised it 3.1. And they gave me, what did they give me? 1.7. And what my down payment on the 1.8 was, $600,000.
Yep.
And then basically my rehab, after paying that off, was free, got my money back. And then I went and bought the next property, did the same exact thing. So I've basically rolled all this over into my next deal. I didn't go out and, buy Ferraris or any, and if people want to do that, like have at it. It's, this is America, baby.
But you had that goal and that philosophy. And that's why I bring that up, is because you had a vision on what you want to do and how you did it. You were able to, elbow grease your way into that first deal. Okay. A lot of it's a great, you get that opportunity, but then you keep working it. Your timeline gets better, your money gets better. And all of a sudden now today, 5-6 years later, what are we sitting on door count wise?
I have 38 doors that produce income. I have 2 that are getting built on one of my existing properties with ADUs. So, soon to be 40 doors, no business partners, pretty low leverage, and the goal is accumulate. Don't stop.
Yeah, don't stop.
It's my retirement plan.
And when we talk to people, again, investors, we're telling them the same thing. Look, if you're picking up 10 doors, 20 doors a decade, like, hey, 3-4 decades, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
But to be on pace to do 100 doors a decade plus, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Once the crazy thing to think about is when I stabilized that first property in El Cajon, which was sometime in 2000, like summer of 22, that was the first time I ever collected a rent check.
Nice.
And so to go from there to, when everything's leased up, I'll be at like a little over 1.1 a year in gross.
Nice.
With no partners. It's crazy to think about, but the other thing about real estate is if you play the tax game right on the depreciation side, you're forced to continue to buy real estate.
Yep.
If you look at any of the big guys, they continue to buy because of depreciation.
Yep.
They say it's,
Talk about that real quick. I want you to talk about how being a real estate professional allows you the opportunity to take advantage of the tax code through depreciation or a cost analysis. You want to just talk that real quick?
Yeah. So
and again, we're not accountants, we're not tax professionals, but this is just our experience talking.
I feel like one because I've researched it so much.
Right.
But obviously this is a huge piece of my game plan.
Right.
And so I think it was part of Trump's 2017 tax cuts.
Correct.
And basically the 100% bonus depreciation stepped down, I think 20 points every 2 years or so. Yep. So by the time I had bought my first building in 2020, I think I was at like 60%.
Yep.
And so you can't depreciate land. So, if you buy a building for $1 million, 50% is land, let's call it, you can mess with that, but 50% is land, and they're going to cost seg it out. And instead of, taking the depreciation on the property at 27 and a half years, you accelerate it up front to basically 1 year to 5 years.
Yep.
And the cost segregation study will show you, what year it falls into. But January 1st of this year, as bonus depreciation was fading out to 0%, now part of the new big beautiful bill, I think. It's 100% bonus depreciation indefinitely, which is
huge,
unbelievable. It's great for continuing to sell these things because it brings a lot more buyers into the marketplace. And some simple math. I just bought one. So I've basically bought a building a year because, again, I'm kind of forced to buy this stuff because
that's how you write off.
That's how I write off all of my income on the multifamily side. But I have this other business that cranks really cranks, and I need to depreciate that income.
Yep.
So, you can easily get to a point where you have zero federal income taxes due, and it's not like, it's pretty easy to do. And if you don't use all the depreciation in a certain year, it carries over.
Yep. This is the biggest thing I talk to W-2 employee or W-2 earners about. It's like, hey, how are you ever going to write off all that W-2 income?
Yep.
And if you become a real estate professional, as listed by the federal tax code, you go to either appropriate hours or appropriate units and things, then you can use a cost segregation analysis, or you can use depreciation to slowly write down your federal taxes.
Yeah.
And again, DRE, no, not a tax professional, just, happen to be a real estate professional.
Case study.
That's correct. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. And look, this is the world that I love and that we're both in, is residential property. And it's not just about building for retirement, but it's about saving for now as well. And
certainly.
So I think it's great. I think we only got a couple minutes left. I want to wrap us up with two questions. The first one, just kind of like, market.
Yeah.
What is the biggest challenges you're facing in the market? I know you got your residential sales business and your multifamily, but just real quick, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing right now?
Yeah, residential resale side of the business is just going to be lack of inventory.
Yeah.
As of today, 2,800 detached single family homes in the county of San Diego with 3+ million people.
Nothing.
So, it's really figuring for me on the listing side, how motivated is my seller? Right. If they're just trying to test the market, if a property has A+ location, it's dialed in and it's in a good neighborhood, it's still selling at all-time highs.
Yeah.
But stuff that's, not the best location, it needs to, there's some work that needs to be done on it. It's a little softer. And, I've really had to make the transition of figuring out who I say no to.
Sure.
Because I think I'm carrying, this whole year I've carried 12 to 15 active listings throughout the entire year, which is an amazing thing. But, if I have people that my seller's not motivated, he won't give me price drops if we need to go find the market, then that's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my marketing, and we're spending money to market these houses.
Yes,
so that's probably the biggest thing, is finding motivated sellers. But I have a really good niche that I focus on.
Sure.
And so a lot of those people just come to me, and then I just vet them, right?
Right.
I'd say the biggest challenge on the multifamily side is finding value add deals.
Oh, yeah.
The multifamily prices have certainly softened a little bit last year, 2 years. Cap rates have gone up because interest rates have gone up, but you have a lot of sellers that are sitting on, paid off properties, and they're like, they don't want to give the discount because they still like the income, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of the multifamily deals I've bought, they've been inherited properties.
Yeah.
And then so those sellers have step up in basis, and then they sell this thing tax free, which is one of the biggest pluses of buying real estate if you want to transfer wealth.
Yep. Last 30 seconds. If I put you in the DeLorean, send you in the time machine back in time, and you're talking to baby Patrick when you're first getting into this industry, what's the number one piece of advice you're giving to yourself?
Put yourself out there and go talk to as many people as humanly possible. They say, my business, like, don't be a secret agent, but it's true. Like, people are afraid to make phone calls, afraid to network. I wouldn't have gotten to where I'm at if I hadn't met these investors, if I hadn't, built these relationships with people that I look back on, and, you don't know who's going to be in the business next year or 5 years from now, but I have good relationships with a lot of people that are in the business. And it's because, I went out there and talked to them and figured out what was working for them if they'd been in the business for a while. So, I think the biggest thing is going out there and talk to as many people as you can humanly talk to.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. Patrick Mercer, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, man.
And for those of us, stay tuned next week for another episode of CashFlow, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. Thank you.